are you worried about the defense? I mean, in general, the answer is probably, yeah, I'm worried about the defense going about that against Patrick Mahomes. But in general, this defense seems to be struggling more than we're used to in the playoffs. I saw people saying that if they lost that game, Steve Wilkes wouldn't be back. Now, obviously, people are very dramatic, but I also saw people saying that perhaps in the Super Bowl, if they didn't win, that Steve Wilkes won't be back. How do you feel? Do you feel like it's a Steve Wilkes problem? I know he was not getting pressure with 4. Do you think it's more of a personnel issue? There was Chase Young made one good play on Montgomery in the second quarter that I vividly remember, but then I also have seen a lot of clips on Twitter of him jogging, stopping, watching. There's one where he jogs to Jameis Williams, does my little thing that I just did earlier in the show, and then Chase Young stops and gets excited because unlike us who have to pay for the tickets to the game, he was like, oh, I actually just get a front row seat, and he just stood there. And I was like, no, you're supposed to run after them. That's why you're standing there, not because you're in the front row. So how did you feel about we'll talk about the front 4, and then, I mean, are you nervous about the back end? Because Logan Ryan was a cornerback at one point for us, and I just feel like that shouldn't be a thing on like we're going to the Super Bowl. Sorry, every time I say that I get a little excited. But we are going to the Super Bowl with Logan Ryan, who was starting, and I feel like that's kind of concerning.
He didn't start.
Not starting,
Jair Brown was back starting, but Ambry Thomas got hurt late in the game, so he did have to go in at corner, which was weird. We hadn't seen him. We hadn't seen him at corner, but he did play corner, earlier in his career, so he does have that experience. It's concerning, but I think Ambry Thomas is going to be okay. I think he just slightly tweaked his ankle a bit at the end there. So, I mean, he has 2 weeks to recover.
Did you see that injury report from today? Kyle Shanahan said George Kittle has a toe injury, and I'm like, is that turf toe?
Yeah, hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Fingers crossed.
Hopefully not. You would have think Kyle Juszczyk would have a toe injury. He was putting those toes to work. But no, yeah, I am concerned about the defense.
That was like a delayed reaction, but I was like,
thanks. Yeah, I am concerned about the defense. I'm concerned about Steve Wilkes because it just doesn't look like they're coming into the game prepared. No. Like, we're seeing the same issues surface every game. You would think after the Packers game that'd be a wake-up call. Okay, let's bring these adjustments that I did in the second half. Let's start
over to the first. Yeah. Like, why do we have to relearn the same lesson at halftime?
Yeah, it's a different team, different personnel. There's, they run things a little bit differently, but a lot of that, the pin and pull stuff that was working for the Packers was working for the Lions as well, and they didn't have an answer for it. I simply don't think the 49ers have an answer for it. Maybe they've just accepted that. I don't know, but what I'm seeing is adjustments in the second half, but that's not cutting it for me. Like, this is the playoffs. Like, you need to come in a little more prepared, and you better come in more prepared against Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and that Chiefs team, because if not, I mean, look, what I've learned of the 49ers these past 2 games is that they have a really large margin of error. But you can't go into the Super Bowl just depending on that. You can't fall back on that. You just cannot. And so that's the concern with me, that this slow start.
You have to play all 4 quarters against the Chiefs.
Yeah,
like the Chiefs, like, doing good in the first half. Like, they kind of had that, like, the opposite issue in all their games kind of throughout the regular season, right? Like, they were super dominant and kind of slowed down in the second half. Sometimes that was just them taking their foot off the brake. And then we've seen the opposite now in the last 2 games where you're like, literally like, fire sale. This is not the team that we're used to. What is happening? It was their offense. It was their quarterback. It was their play caller. It was their defensive coordinator. It was their front 4. It was their back end. It was Jake Moody missing. I was like, this is a total team collapse. And then they turned it around. And yeah, that's not going to work against Patrick Mahomes. You need beginning to end freaking ability to do that really quick. I'm not even going to. Do you want to try to pronounce that name? I can't pronounce anything. This is
Sparther, Kiwi Warrior.
There we go. Look at why I can't read. Sometimes, this is a side note, but I think now that I like do this, I listen to people and I can appreciate things a lot more. When people can just chat and then like seamlessly, like they're talking, doing a podcast, and seamlessly read a super chat and then go back on, I'm like, I feel so impressed. But 49ers fans unite around the world. I don't know where that is either.
New Zealand, I think.
New Zealand?
Sure.
Oh, New Zealand? Hell yeah. I had someone from Bolivia. I can't. Bolivia.
Yeah.
Words, pronunciation. Hell yeah. I had someone from Australia and then someone from Bolivia in my live stream last night. I love how international 49er fans are.
Yeah, and that's great. Like, shout out to all the fans of the 49ers from like different countries. It's so hard to follow a team when the time zones are like completely out of whack. Like
waking up at like 4 a.m.
Yeah, the UK had the game at like 11 p.m. So you're watching until like 1 a.m. Like it's crazy, and it's like that all season. So a lot of commitment. Respect to you guys, and
it's so cool. And that's credit to the 49ers, right? Because I think that happens when you are a successful team. Like playoff runs like this, how we were just saying how important that game was. Like exciting games like this success that Kyle Shanahan has had under his coaching regime, Brock Purdy, quarterbacks like that. The 49ers, obviously, immense, rich history of being such a dominant team. That is why the 49ers have fans in all these areas. Very, very cool. Very cool. But yeah, hi, and thank you so much for tuning in. And then, but yeah, going back to Steve Wilkes really quick, I'm definitely nervous about this defensive performance that we've seen with their ability to kind of make adjustment. Like to me, you shouldn't have to go into halftime to realize kind of like, do you feel like the defense made adjustments that helped them stop, or do you think that Dan Campbell went again? Because I felt like they never stopped the run. I feel like Dan Campbell and the offense, Ben Johnson, kind of went away from the run with the Lions. Going into halftime, the announcer said that both Montgomery and Gibbs had more rushing yards than Christian McCaffrey. Like they had broken they had both averaged over 12 yards per carry. It was like some crazy stat going into halftime.
Yeah, going into halftime, it was gross. They gave up 148 rushing yards, but only 34 in the second half. Now, your question of was that because the Lions stopped running, or is that because the 49ers made an adjustment? I think it was a little of both. I think the Lions did
also tackling. I think that they got better at tackling.
They did, so that's part of it.
Is player execution. Like I can't put that on.
Yeah. So I think they played a little bit harder in the second half. Like I said, I think even Chase Young, who we've been pointing out this whole time, like even he had some nice plays in the second half in the run game. I just need more consistency, right? Like I think that's what we need. It's like we're talking about Steve Wilkes and like having guys prepared, but at the same time, like I'm seeing lack of effort in the first half too. And I don't know if the lack of effort is because, man, like we weren't ready for this. Like, like what the hell, man? Like, I don't know. When you keep getting gashed, I mean, it's kind of hard to keep your head up high, right? So that starts to show a little bit, at least in the last two games. It kind of has in the first half. So that's a little concerning to me because I don't need this defense with their spirits low, like in the first half of the game. And so in order to feel confident about the game plan, they need to get stops early in the game. That's just not something we've seen, especially the run defense. We thought Eric Armstead was going to be the guy that, was going to help this run defense, but now they've lost Clinton Farrell as well. So they don't have guys who are setting the edge. Sometimes even Nick Bosa like gives up the edge, right? So there just needs to be more consistency, more discipline in that
I do want to
regard.
say, like, I think that the decision to have Jair Brown start over Logan
Yeah,
Ryan
Logan Ryan.
helped win them the game, because even though I did feel like there was a couple, and maybe you watched the game today, but I think he did give up a couple plays, but I felt like he was key in kind of making some of those tackles and helping set the edge. Did you feel that way?
He's quick downhill.
Yeah,
He's reactive, so, which is part of the reason that Kyle, I think, was like, iffy on having him in these playoff games, because it's like, I don't want a player that's like too over aggressive, and who knows what he was doing in practice, right? I kind of feel like
yeah,
practice plays into it more than we think. Kyle
yeah.
really pays attention to how guys are practicing, and if you're not convincing in practice, you are not going to play or start. So I think that was kind of maybe the issue with Jair Brown. Um, yeah, I do think like he had some good plays. I think Jair Brown's um, skill set matched up well with what
They
the
missed
Lions did
Hafunga
well.
with
Oh,
that
dude,
tackling
yeah.
stuff. They really missed Hafunga.
I didn't even realize how much this team missed Tufunga until like I think it was like 2 weeks ago. David Lombardi like posted the splits of like their I think it was their defensive EPA when Hufanga was there earlier in the season, and then when he was out. Night and day difference. Like I had no idea. Like I always loved Hufanga, but I had no idea he made that much
Mattered
of
that
a
much.
difference.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because like after
It did
after
feel
he
like
went
when he
down,
first went out, there was a
yeah,
couple, like,
like
you didn't
Jair
notice a
Brown,
huge.
we were like Jair Brown, like he's doing pretty well, but like clearly not the same things that Hufanga was doing.
I really, while we're talking about this, wanted to say, this guy comments, if they do win a Super Bowl, I feel bad for
You
Hafunga for
mentioned this
not.
last week, didn't you?
Yeah, which I mentioned, but then I also did want to say, and obviously it's not the same as like them playing, but I did see he was on the field without crutches.
Nice. He
They
also did the air horn, like the foghorn before the game.
Okay, perfect. So I love, like, I know that there's a lot of players that kind of talk about with injury, because of where they have to rehab and do all that, they can feel really isolated from the team. And on the most minor level, just playing sports in college, I when I fractured my shins, like, I remember you kind of like beat yourself up for not being able to help. I know Deebo Samuel, just when he hurt his shoulder, really talked about the anxiety of not like feeling like you're
Yeah.
making an impact. And I think it's so meaningful when teams and other players, your peers, make an effort to make you feel involved. Obviously, not the same as playing, but I like that they were doing that, and I like that they showed that. I think it was on the 49ers Instagram that I saw him and people congratulating him, and him being in the huddle without crutches and all that. So thank God, it looks like he's gonna be doing better. And heck, maybe we'll be back next year and he'll get it then, and it'll be the year of Huff's revenge, not being able to be there. But yeah, definitely missing Hufunga. Someone in here said, "What are they going to do about Travis Kelce?" I think it was Rick, and
I'll
I
tell
thought
you
that
what
that was.
you shouldn't do against Travis Kelce is play zone. Steve Wilkes was playing a lot of like soft zone against the Lions, and they were like getting easy catches like early in the game. Don't do that. I mean, like Travis Kelce's just so good at finding the soft spots in the zone, and that's why he like if you only watch
He's
like the
also like,
broadcast version,
yeah,
it looks like he's open all the time, and you say to yourself, how is he open? It's because like he literally will just find that spot and turn right away, and he's open. Like that's it. That's all it takes. And Mahomes does a good job of finding him and knowing where he's going to be in those moments. But yeah, he's the best at finding those spots in the zone. So and he just he's a different player in the playoffs. I mean, he's a beast in the playoffs. What
yeah.
happened in the regular season, it wasn't
That's
his best regular
yeah, yeah.
season, does
Like,
not
it
matter
felt
right
like
now.
it felt like he was like like people were kind of like, oh, like he's, you're kind of
He's
starting to
washed.
see he's like older. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't want to say it like that, but people were like, they were like, damn, this is really, it was the first kind of validating as a 49er fan, because I feel like we've always been like, you really appreciate your players. So you're like, Kittle is just as good. Like Kittle, or, people really hype up Kittle. But this was a year that Kittle was like actually recognized as like performing better than Travis Kelce this year. And then freaking they start the playoffs and he's like the best. He's just like, oh, okay. Not saying he's better than Kittle, but just like back to his full self. Doesn't look slow, doesn't look confused, doesn't, he's 110%. Him and Patrick Mahomes are just bang, bang, bang. Definitely a little bit frustrating. Are you worried about the lack of pressure with Mahomes? I'm worried about not only the lack of pressure, but Patrick Mahomes is mobile. Like they struggled against Jared Goff, and Jared Goff isn't mobile.
Well, the Lions have a better offensive line.
True.
But I mean, they were banged up.
Yeah,
Like
the 49ers were getting beat up in the trenches, which was crazy.
Ragnow had 2 injuries and he was still dominating out there. Like, dude's a beast. But yeah, they were getting dominated, especially in the first half. And that's concerning, especially out in space. Anything that like screens or like they did like an end around or reverse at one point, and the 49ers defense was like nowhere to be. Like they were getting blocked the hell up. And I mean, you can't have that happen, in the Super Bowl. The Chiefs are going to find a way to exploit that because they have a running game now. Isaiah Pacheco is really good. He runs
I hate
hard,
and it's like a down year for the Chiefs, and they're still like the best.
they have
like,
new wrinkles.
So frustrating. It's so frustrating.
Yeah,
like you really, this is a bad year for you, and you're still just like probably gonna win the Super Bowl.
How do they keep doing this?
Yeah. Do you think that it's do you consider you have to have 3 Super Bowl wins for it to be like a dynasty? Like, would you consider the Chiefs a dynasty right now, or are they like in the makings of creating a dynasty?
Yeah, I think 3 is like in a span of years is probably a dynasty. If you can get 2 in a row too.
They have 2. Some people will say it now and they have 2. So, but yeah, anyways, someone said, I think Trent Williams really deserves the ring. Talk about people who look like they love Brock Purdy. We were saying Kyle Shanahan looks like smitten with him after the game. The way that Trent Williams talks about Brock Purdy, and I feel like he's finally, going to the Super Bowl, getting there. He is making sure to take in every moment of that 100%. I think he has to get a win. And I like that his agent came out a couple weeks ago and said that he was going to be back for next season, even before, because people are kind of debating if they won, would he retire? If they didn't win, would he try to run it back? Stuff like that. So I like that they kind of put an end to that.